Hey guys, this is two guys in a pod. This is our first ever episode recording here. Basically, a little background about what we think this is going to be. But we're just two guys. We've been friends since high school. Now we go to different universities. I go to Ohio State, and Dom goes to Michigan. So rival schools, but we've held our friendship pretty tightly ever since. And we're just two guys here talking about things that we think should be brought up. A lot of things that are in the media right now, a lot of controversial topics. But I'm just going to start off this with a little introduction about ourselves so our listeners can kind of get a feel for who we are. So my name is Benjamin Martinez. I was born in Miami, Florida, but currently live in Cincinnati, Ohio area. I grew up in South America for a couple of years in Colombia and Venezuela before I moved to the U.S. and studying chemical engineering with a business minor at Ohio State. And yeah, just a little bit about myself. Dominic, do you want to go on talk about yourself?
Yeah, sure, buddy. So my name's Dom Peraino. I was born in California. Not that that's relevant. Uh,
Very
not
true.
that it's relevant at all. But I've lived in Ohio for most of my life. I go to the University of Michigan now, so I live in Michigan. Um, and yeah, I'm. What else did you say about yourself? I don't even.
I guess my major, I
Yeah,
guess.
I'm majoring in political science, I guess. I'm pretty politically active, I guess, in the sense that I follow the news pretty closely, and try to stay informed. So, yeah, like Ben said,
Debates online and everything like that.
yeah, I'll engage anyone online who seems to hold a stupid opinion. And yeah, I guess that's just a little bit about me. And I guess the one other thing that we want to say before we jump in to everything we got set up here is neither of us are experts in literally anything. We are both idiots in literally everything. We know
I
nothing.
think we're pretty sure we might be on the spectrum of autism, but that's neither here nor
That's
there.
neither here nor
But
there. Uh,
but yeah,
um, yeah. So if we ever say something that's stupid, tell us and tell us why, because we like to be more informed than we currently are. So I'll just
yeah,
leave that there. Food for thought. Okay,
yeah.
so basically, with the way we think this is going to go is we're just going to talk about stuff that we find interesting, mainly in the news, but we're going to just take it wherever it goes. So the first thing, and the thing we probably talked about the most before doing this, Aziz Ansari. Uh,
Yeah. Great guy.
is
Ever seen
he?
Masters of None?
Is he?
I mean,
I actually
I
saw
mean,
the first
now
episode.
I'm not sure. I mean, before I kind of get that thing. Like every week, you're kind of like looking at your news feed, like, oh, who's gonna get exposed now, and who can I no longer like? Like Louis C.K., one of my favorite comedians by far. And then the whole thing came out, and I'm like, I can't. Like, I used to reference him all the time. I used to say his jokes to my friends. We had like a bunch of inside jokes about Louis C.K. Just us two, Dom.
Yeah, we did.
And now we like you can't say that anymore. It's you're just
You
kind of like at
can't.
an awkward
It
position.
really is awkward.
But I mean, Aziz Ansari, I never really watched Masters of None too much. I've seen a
Watch the
couple
first episode.
episodes.
People have said it's good. I watched the
No,
first
it's
episode. It
great.
wasn't
I
really
mean,
my thing.
it's
I've heard it gets better after that, but I've heard
yeah,
it's
I've
pretty
heard it gets
good.
better, but
Um,
I mean, it's been recognized many times. I think it won like Golden Globes, or at least nominated for a good amount of them. And I mean, just recent. And I mean, Aziz Ansari has been pretty vocal about the Times Up movement before and about women's rights and equality and all that. But like most people see him as a pretty chill dude, and like I've seen some of his stand up before too, and he talks pretty eloquently. Like he's doesn't seem like a ignorant piece of shit like other people out there. But I mean, yeah, I mean, just that
so
was my initial
so
reaction
let's
to
talk
it.
a little
Was
bit
just
about what happened because I'm a little bit
yeah, go ahead.
I'm a
For
little
people
bit
that don't know, go
confused.
ahead.
Um, yeah. So basically, the way I understand it, and I've pulled up an article right now to make sure they don't just completely talk right out of my ass, but what I understand is that sometime I think in 2015 maybe.
Uh, yeah, it might have been a couple years ago.
Um, I'm trying to figure out when it was. He's famous at this point is what I'm getting at.
Yes,
Um,
not as much as he is now, but I mean, he'd been doing stand up for a while, and like he was a known person.
um, yeah, it doesn't actually say when it was in this,
Yeah.
but
Well, from go ahead. Just go
so
into
yeah,
what
he went
happened.
on a date with someone who I guess knew who he was through him being
They got
famous.
supposedly they got each other's number at a after party for some award show or something,
Sure.
and they just met briefly, and then they exchanged numbers, and then that like they were both in New York, and he texted her. They set up the date, but
Yeah.
that's just prefaced to what happened
So they
before
went
the
on a
date.
date, and I think in Aziz's own words, they like ended up having sex at the end.
No. Okay. So basically, what happened, was they went on a date. Everything was fine, according to her. They went to like a nice restaurant, and everything was fine, but that he's kind of looked rushed to kind of leave and then go back to his place. So that they went back to his place, and then he kind of like initiated making out and everything, which she said she was fine with at the time, but she felt a little rushed. Um, but then that supposedly that he was coming on to her very strong, and like would try to like immediately go for her breast, and other things, and then like kind of start feeling her up and kind of moving his hands towards like her vagina and other areas like that. And that supposedly she says that she kept giving him hints, so she kept pulling his hand off and like telling him to slow down, but that he was not like listening to any of her signals. Um, Eventually, what I remember was that I think they each like had oral sex, and that she had felt force, and like that she had told him like she didn't really want to. But they didn't have sex, according to her. That like he had obviously said that he like if they should, and she rejected, and then like was like immediately went home after that, and he got her like a taxi or something. Basically, she said that like feeling like she called her friend immediately crying, and she felt like she had been abused, basically just because she had kept giving all him signs and signs and signs, and he kept forcing himself upon her, and kind of like eventually like led her to have like do oral sex.
Yeah, that seems pretty bad to me. I think he pretty much admits as much.
Yeah,
That
came out with a statement apologizing and everything.
so like obviously what he did was wrong. Let's put that on the table right now. Because the problem, here's the problem with what I'm about to say. As soon as you say anything like what I'm about to say, you find yourself surrounded with the scum of the earth. Okay? Here's the problem, all right? I feel like this a little bit undermines what the Time's Up movement is kind of about. Do you understand what I'm saying when I say that?
I do.
And I say this with like the most like overarching, let's be really clear about like the context of this situation possible, because you find yourself surrounded by, and I'm not exaggerating, people who just hate women when you say things like this. People who like, well, that fucking, she deserved to get raped and all this stuff. Like,
find yourself with the people that hate feminism, and they just hate feminism because honestly they find women annoying, and on like if you ask them to their core why they hate women and why they hate feminists, they will literally just respond with because they think men are better.
Yeah,
this is who the people you find yourself with.
Yeah, so like obviously what he did was wrong. Obviously it's not like she should have like been more clear. Like he should have gotten like explicit consent, because that's just how the world works. That being said, I feel like the Time's Up movement more is about like explicit, like, or do I don't even know if I think that. Like,
okay, before we get into that, what do you think exactly the Time's Up movement is about?
So
or what do you think
me, it's about? I don't know if it's specific to Hollywood or just people in power, but
I think it started off about Hollywood, but it's kind of spread to other things since then, and it's kind of taken on this form of just women's rights basically at this point. I think it's so broad, and like there's so many things that are going on right now. But yeah, I mean, I thought originally it was about inequality in Hollywood, specifically about the pay gap between women actors and male actors, and the wage gap between that. And then of course the Harvey Weinstein thing, obviously about how rampant it is in that industry in particular, of how there are people in just tremendous power struggles, and how some people have just so much power, like Harvey Weinstein, incredible amount of money, incredible amount of influence and power within the industry. And then you have these actors and actresses that are just starting off that basically have none, and they just want an opportunity. And I feel like that disparity is kind of like what they're coming at, and how the victims basically have no power and no rights at this point. How even when women who like felt like something had happened to them and came out and said something, they had no support from anyone. what happened was the Harvey Weinsteins of the world would just throw lawyers and a bunch of money at them, and they were basically helpless. That's what I thought the Time's Up movement was about originally, but it's kind of gone past that now. It's basically about all sorts of things. I mean, and then now that Larry Nassar thing came out, and it just kind of turned into like giving women like empowerment and giving women like the power to speak up and go against basically injustices that they see. But I think specifically sexual assault and other things like that.
So when I first heard this, what I first I hadn't I had read a different article that I'm looking at right now, and you obviously hadn't explained this to me. Reading this now, I think it kind of changes my view. Originally, it kind of sounded to me like they met up, they did something. She sort of felt used, but also it could have been interpreted like she sort of just felt like he was kind of awkward and bad, and then she sort of regretted it afterwards. And I was like, okay, that kind of takes away from the Time's Up movement. That's when I was like, okay, let's preface this. But now I'm like, yo, he like actually kind of fits exactly what it is. In a way, think about it.
Yeah.
He's like,
I mean,
in a position of power, obviously, right? She's sort of, I guess, I mean, I don't know exactly what was going through it, but it seems she's sort of starstruck. It seems to me like he's just sort of, based on her account, in control of the situation the whole time. And it sort of seems to me like he used everything that sort of he knew surrounded him to like get what he wanted. And that kind of seems exactly like the problem, you know?
Well, anyways, my take on the Aziz Ansari, I'll just be brief because I talked for a good amount there. But basically, I think we need to start differentiating all these cases because I mean, we've had so many at this point. They kind of all just bundle into one, and it's almost like you're just increasing a blacklist. People that should never be in Hollywood ever again. It's basically what it's become now. And I feel like we should differentiate between them. Like, what Aziz Ansari was completely wrong. I'm not here to say that what he did was right, but I feel like what he did is definitely different than what Harvey Weinstein did.
But how though?
I mean, you gotta like, what do you mean? How is it different? But Harvey Weinstein literally did it for decades, and how many?
So it's like more systematic in his case, but like
systematic. But not just that, but he actually raped women, Dominic.
I mean, the argument is there that so did Aziz Ansari, right?
Did he though?
I mean, yeah, kinda. I mean, not even kinda. Like he did though.
It is. It's just tough because, like, I feel like there should be layers to this, but
similarly, like, here's maybe a better example if you want to talk about layers. Did you hear about James Franco?
Yes.
Okay, this might be a better example.
Go ahead.
So, a woman who James Franco directed in a play a few years ago came forward and was like, I don't know exactly what she accused him of, but James Franco denied it, and then she deleted the tweet. In which she
accused him of, like, supposedly they were in the car together, and that he forced her, like, her head onto his penis while they were in the car.
Okay.
And like forced her to basically give him like a blowjob in the car.
Okay. If that's true, it's bad, of course.
Of course. James Franco also got a lot of flack for this Instagram thing where like a fan who took a picture of James Franco after one of his shows, or I think after his play or something, and posted a picture on Instagram with him and tagged him. And then he DM'd the girl and started talking to her. She was only 17. And some people are saying that he didn't know. Some people are saying that he did know. But he she made the messages available, and it's basically him like asking to get a hotel room with her and everything.
That's pretty weird. We're being
pretty weird. I mean,
it doesn't make the other situation look better.
No, it doesn't. But here's the thing: like, I'm kind of struggling with this personally because, like, do we really want to put layers to these people? Because, like, or like for another good example, Louis C.K. Like, what he did was he like masturbated in front of women.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't exactly like personally touch them or assault them,
but he like sexually harassed them.
But he sexually harassed them. Like, that's like it's over the line. that's what I'm struggling with. Like, is if anything that crosses the line, should that just all be put in the same category, or should we like divide it
See, here's
within
the
it? Like,
problem. Part of me, like the 15-year-old part of me, wants to say it shouldn't be in the same category because I want to think that there's like a beneficial like element to like differentiating, to like give the most benefit of the doubt, I guess, or something. Like, to me it seems like, well, not every crime in a sexual nature is equal, I guess, so maybe it's good. And then like the part of me that like actually does rational thinking, I'm like, well, maybe, but like
does
they're
that
all
part of you
really
exist?
bad. Like, I don't know how to differentiate between how bad any of them are.
It
And
is.
let's say that you can differentiate between how bad any of them are. If you start like classifying how bad they are, it just sort of takes away from the testimony
Yeah,
of the people who are like
it is.
impacted.
And I mean, and I think the whole point of this is to give victims rights, to make them
Yeah.
feel like someone's actually listening to. And if we start saying, hey, what they did was bad, but it's not as bad as what other people did, I feel like we're kind of just taking away from that, which I understand. But I don't know. I just feel like some of these actors are just getting blacklisted, possibly for their entire careers. And I mean, obviously they did something wrong.
But like, I
But
think they deserve to be. Is the
you think so?
thing. Yeah.
I don't know.
Like,
Like,
if you were the owner of a business, would you hire somebody who like got fired from their last job for touching their subordinates? I wouldn't.
right.
I don't
Right.
know. Like,
But it's also a different thing because it's like they're a very particular skill set. Like Aziz Ansari, like someone will probably eventually give him a chance, just considering that he is so talented and that people would like it. This happens all the time in sports, for example, when you have a person that has a very specialized product that only they can give, teams and owners and whatever are willing to look the other way if they think at the end of the day they're gonna like give them something. Like if
Michael
like
Vick?
in
Anyone?
yeah, not just Michael Vick, dude. So many
I
people.
mean, yeah, many, but good example, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
and
I
that's
don't
kind
know.
of the problem too.
That is the
Like,
problem.
and it's kind of a problem with like another really messed up part of Hollywood. People are like unwilling to look anywhere else, I feel. So this kind of perpetuates the problem that we have like only white directors nominated for Academy Awards. We only have, like this
I
like
think
people like in
how
I feel
many
like
how
yeah,
many Asian American actors are there? It's like when I was reading the studies on it, it was like the percentage of like actors that get like a starting role, Asian Americans in movies, and then comparing it to like the U.S. population, it's such a disproportionate amount. It's ridiculous.
yeah. It's really messed up. Um and I mean, is part of that probably driven by like people will go to see a movie more likely if there's somebody they know in it? Sure. Or something
Probably.
like that. And people at the end of the day, they care more about their paycheck? Probably. I don't know. This gets into like a bigger discussion that
It does
that
get a
I'm not
bigger
like
discussion that
that I don't know how
I'm
to
not
have
prepared to talk about. Going
like,
back to the original thing we were saying,
and this
we
is why
are
socialism is the answer. I don't know. Like, it kind of is just messed up. I don't know what the answer is. Like, I guess the Time's Up movement is the answer. Like, you just sort of have to like make the thing that people want is like justice for these people, and then it'll fix itself. Or not fix itself, but it'll be easier to fix. I don't know.
it's. I mean, we're just two dumbasses talking. We're not gonna solve the problem ourselves, but
Yeah, I mean, it's just
at
really
least
messed
we're
up,
setting.
dude. I don't know any other way to
I
say
have
it.
a feeling this podcast is just gonna turn into us talking about how the world is fucked up.
Probably. I
Which is
mean,
probably true. I mean, it's accurate.
it's kind of like the answer to everything. I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's pretty.
That sums up
That
basically.
pretty
what
much
we were
sums
talking.
up our thoughts on that. I kind of had misinformation, and then like I read an article. I was like, oh god, it's actually not true. Yeah, that's kind of. I actually saw one thing that, I mean, this is totally typical. There's so many people talking about how like, oh, she just regretted it afterwards or whatever, and like I had read like a summary of an article. To be perfectly honest, I hadn't even read a full article, and I was like, oh, that kind of seems like what it is. And I like opened an article. I was like, okay, probably not. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody who could like make an argument for the other side that like I know there was like something else that happened where like somebody contacted the person who put together the piece and then like saying something about
Really?
maybe like the like maybe about like the legitimacy of it or something, and then the person who wrote the piece responded and just looked like a total jackass. Like I don't remember what they said, but like I mean I could probably pull it up. It was just really
Here's the thing,
bad.
because this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. But what about the actors that have denied the allegations? You know, what about the like? There's been a good amount that like, have gotten accusations, and then they say like I completely deny those. Like never happened. Like Dustin Hoffman was one that he got an allegation from like 1970 or something.
Yeah,
like
and I mean the answer I think lies in the Dustin Hoffman allegation, because if you watch one of the clips about it, it was John Oliver. He was interviewing at some like random panel, and like,
oh yeah,
did you see this? And then Dustin Hoffman like was not prepared for this question.
Oh my
and John
God,
Oliver was like
so
went ham, and he's like, why would she like? He's like, why do you believe them? And John Oliver, and I think this is the right answer, is because why lie about it? Like, they're not gonna get money. They're not gonna like.
There's a possibility. There is.
I mean,
if they
are they really though?
If they come out with that, yeah, there is. There's a possibility if they can take them to court. I mean, I guess in Dustin Hoffman's case, it's particular not, because what is it, like 20 years? You can't.
There's probably some statute of limitations on it, but like,
yeah,
I don't know enough about this to like say whether or not they would get money out of it.
I mean, there definitely is. I would think so. You know, like at least media exposure. Like if you become known as the girl who Dustin Hoffman
maybe like
sexually assaulted, you're gonna get interviews. You're gonna get some exposure.
But still,
on media.
who wants to be known as the girl who got sexually assaulted? Nobody. Like
that's fucked up.
It's really
know,
messed.
But
like, I don't think any person would do that. Then again, I don't think any person would rape somebody else. So maybe I just like.
But that's also you being rational. Some people are not rational.
Isn't that an argument for why she would lie, though? I don't know. I don't think she's lying, but all I'm saying is like.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyways, you want to move on to the next topic?
Sure. Next thing we were talking about, this is actually sort of moot at this point, but the government shutdown that's looming. Apparently, as of like hours ago, it seems like a deal is probably going to get cut. I don't know what the specific deal is. Earlier, there was, the bargaining chip of the Children's Health Insurance Program was one of the things the Republicans were sort of tossing around to get defunded to keep the government open. DACA and Dreamers, I believe, was another one. I don't really know what the deal cut would have been, but yeah, what do you think about all that?
I mean, I think that it will eventually get done. I think before the deadline, just from what I've been hearing the last couple of hours, really. As to what the deal entails, I'm not sure. I feel like the Democrats are probably going to get the better end of the deal. I'm not going to lie. I'm just saying that because, which is kind of weird, because like the Republicans should have most of the leverage in this case.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I've been reading is like a lot of, well, first of all, a poll came out and people, I mean, who knows these polls anymore, but still, I saw one that said that basically people were going to blame Trump and Republicans if the government shut down, and not the Democrats. So that kind of gave the Democrats a little bit of position there. But like a lot of the things that prefaced it were just Republicans talking about how basically the Democrats were holding them hostage and how they were not going to get any deal done unless they had certain things met. And I feel like Republicans have shat the bed too many times the last year especially, with really the only thing that they passed through being the tax cuts that they had right in the last year. And I feel like they need to start off this year strong, and they will do, like, if they have a government shutdown to begin this year, so I feel like Democrats hold a lot of leverage in that scenario.
I mean,
they're probably like a lot of the things you're talking about, the Dream Act, I don't know. I think it's going to get done before the deadline, but Democrats are going to get a lot of bills that they want in their way.
Probably. The one quote that I thought was like especially interesting was from Shepard Smith, who do you know who Shepard Smith is? He's on Fox.
Remind me?
He's an anchor on Fox.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And he was like, you can't blame the Democrats for being obstructionists if the Republicans control everything, which I thought was like really funny. One, coming from Fox, and two, like it's really true. Like, what have the Democrats really done other than not support bad legislation, right? What do you have?
True.
You have the AHCA, American Health Care Act, bad, would have gotten 13 million people off their health insurance, didn't pass. You have the BCRA, the Better Care Reconciliation Act, right? Would have gotten, I think, 16 million people off their insurance, didn't pass. You have the travel ban, which was held up in courts because it's unconstitutional. And aside, travel ban was its original purpose was to give Trump 90 days to like get our immigration in place. If the travel ban was in the courts for more than 90 days, why didn't Trump just get our immigration in place then? Why is it magically that the brown people have to stop coming in? I don't know. But there's that, which failed. There was the disastrous wall, which not even Republicans.
According to him, did you hear the quote that he said the other day?
What?
Where he was like, "Oh, the wall was never meant to be like an actual wall. Like parts of the wall are going to be see-through. There's going to be." I kid you not. Our president literally said that parts of the wall are going to be see-through. But yeah, I agree that Democrats haven't really done anything wrong, and I think that's going to show, especially this coming election. I think I'm most likely predicting that Democrats are.
Say that again. You cut out a little bit.
Sorry, that I'm pretty confident that Democrats this year are going to get the majority in the House.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing to talk about. So 538, of course, keeps a running like tally, I guess, a running poll of who's winning the race for Congress.
Yes.
And actually, from when I last
looked, have Republicans?
It's getting closer. Back in about say beginning, like end of December, Democrats were like 49.6%, Republicans sitting at 37.4%. Now,
wow,
it's like the gap closed by like 4 points.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You think that might be the tax bill that passed through? What do you think that is?
I have no idea. That seems like what it could be.
Bullshit. That's ridiculous.
I mean, it could also, probably, right? The Democrats sitting at, right now even, they're sitting at 8 points ahead. As the midterms come closer and elections start to be ran, like, the number is gonna get closer, right? Like,
for sure. It's bound to get closer. But you would think that with everything that's happened, that's just kind of like the Trump presidency summed up. Like, all this stuff happens, and somehow the guy still somehow stays on top, And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's a testament to just the favoritism that he has within certain people, or just like the support that he has within certain groups that is like just diehard Trump fans, I guess. Or is it just like speaking out to a bigger thing of like Americans just are done with Democrats? I just don't know what it is. I just think it's crazy because I wouldn't say I'm neither Republican or Democrat, and as a third party observer, I would say that Republicans have really been shitting the bed lately.
Yeah, I think basically everybody who's not delusional would probably agree with you. I think, there's a lot of people who say the Democratic Party's in shambles or whatever, who are idiots, in my opinion. But no, I think when you have people, and this sort of is a nice segue, people like Jeff Flake, people like John McCain, people like, I don't know, other side of the coin in the Republican Party, people like Roy Moore. I was about to say
Ted Cruz, and I was about to lose my shit.
No. But like other side of the coin, you have like Republicans who are like very historical, very like, what do you think of when you think of a Republican? Well, I probably think of a rich white guy, right? Yeah. People like Jeff Flake and John McCain, who, at least for John McCain, I don't know as much about John or Jeff Flake, been around for a long time, as Republican kind of like just statutes. I guess, like dissing Trump, like holy shit, man, like that's kind of crazy. And then you have like literal child molesters running for the Senate in the Republican Party and losing in Alabama. Like, that's not good for the Republican Party, dude. Like, and then obviously not to mention like Trump just being a general moron, right? But like wow.
I mean, it's just crazy because I think we are currently in the middle of a major shift. I'm not saying like a party is going to die or anything like that. I think that's too extreme. But I think we're seeing a major shift in philosophies. And
in a good way or a bad way?
I mean, it depends which side you're on, really.
If you're on your side.
I mean, there was an article that I kind of skimmed through a while ago. It was on New York Times. I think this guy named Frank Bruni. It was Democrats are the new Republicans. It was a great opinion piece, but basically it was talking about how it's shifted to the Democratic Party is now seen as the party of family values. You know, like when you think of the
I'm not saying it's not, but is it seen like that?
That's what he's arguing now, because basically, before the Republican Party was, the more religious party, the one that championed the middle class more, the one that said that they were there to support the average family. You know, to some degree they still are, but like since Trump, it's kind of become more of the Democratic Party being the one that's seen as the more sane one, the one that's there to protect the regular person, because with a lot of people now are thinking that the Republican Party and especially Trump is there to support the interest of the wealthy, and the Democrats are now kind of going against that and saying like, come to us, we're the ones that are going to help you out. And just I think also the language of the Republican Party as of late, the rhetoric, especially coming from Trump's side, I wouldn't really classify Trump's rhetoric as family friendly or of holding family values.
Yeah, I would probably. I mean, here's the problem I have with that.
And I think sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm trying to find a stat real fast. Go for it.
But yeah, basically, I think my favorite part of the article was talking about fiscal responsibility. That was the biggest part, because I learned the Republican Party was what? It was limited government, giving more states' rights, basically not having a big budget and just keeping the government small, and then basically leaving the rest to like go off on itself. You know, like capitalism will take care of itself. Now he's arguing with the recent tax bill that how Republicans are willing to increase the deficit by that much and increase the debt by that much, that they no longer are the party of fiscal responsibility.
I mean, with that, I mean, like, I totally agree with you. The place I disagree is in the way that people see it. So as of January 14th of 2018, Trump has an 81% approval rating among Republicans. To me,
that's crazy.
That is insane.
That's
and
ludicrous.
Also, what that says to me, an idiot, is that people will just eat up whatever he says. So I don't think Republicans see the Democratic Party as the party of family values. I mean, maybe more independents do, because his approval rating among independents is 35% as of January 14th. But, and of course not among Democrats, right, is 5%. But I think probably staunch Democrats have probably always seen themselves as the party of family values. But the problem is, even fiscal responsibility, Republicans, or at least Trump's base, will eat up whatever they throw at them. So when you say, and I say something like, well, if we decrease taxes, that's going to increase the deficit. Or when we decrease taxes on the wealthy, we have to increase taxes on the middle class. And what, a Democrat hears is, okay, well, poor people are going to be worse off. What a Trump supporter hears is trickle-down economics. This is going to help Trump bring jobs back. He hasn't forgotten about us, right? He hasn't forgotten, the jobs that went to, Mexico and China that are definitely been replaced by robots at this point. Oh, they're totally going to come back. I'm going to get my job. And everything's going to be great. I mean, they don't understand that there's going to be inflation. They don't understand that, because of inflation and other things, our debt's going to rise, right? They don't understand any of these things, but they don't hear any of those things. So when you say like the Democratic Party is seen as the party of family values, like to these people, it isn't. And did you ever see the clip? It was when Roy Moore was running for Senate. It was a Republican strategist who obviously didn't like Roy Moore. He brought in 10 people who were Alabamians, people from Alabama who were voting for Roy Moore. And he was like, why? How could you do this? Like, why are you voting for Roy Moore? And they like kind of just believe that Democrats are evil. Like, they kind of just believe that like what Democrats want is to like kill babies and raise taxes on them.
That kind of just goes down to like the more fundamental problem that we have in like America. That's basically just the political divide between Republicans and Democrats. I think is probably as large as it's been since arguably the Civil War. Probably not quite, but there's probably been other movements that I'm probably missing about. But I mean, we're down to the point where if a Democrat hears Republican, they immediately reject them, or they immediately just think they're shit, and vice versa, of course. Like we're down to the point that you won't become friends with another Republican, or you won't become friends with another Democrat, just solely based off of their political affiliation.
But like,
it's almost like it's ingrained in people's heads now that if they have the opposite political views as you cannot share a room with that person. Like you like
but like
beyond,
prove me wrong.
It's beyond. Go ahead.
Prove me wrong here. I totally agree that people think that, because I pretty much believe that. Okay. Say I'm living, or maybe not living. Say I'm just friends with somebody who's a Republican. Okay. They're Trump supporter, MAGA hat, build the wall in their Twitter bio, whatever. They automatically assume that anybody who's brown is here illegally. They automatically assume that black people are dumber. They automatically assume that Middle Eastern people are terrorists, right? Or they at least, and they won't tell you this, right? But they won't say it like that. They'll say it like, well, they just have a higher chance of being one. They just have a right. They'll phrase it in a way that's like not.
Yeah, I love the language that they phrase it as usually.
They'll super hard like hide it, and I don't even think that they think they're being racist.
No,
all these things make somebody a terrible person to me. So if I hear like, yo, I'm a Trump supporter, I'm like, my first thought is, okay, well, I don't really want to be friends with you. Is that bad?
I don't. Here's the thing, like, because I get this a lot too, and my initial reaction when I hear that is, oh, and then I ask them, why? I think that's the bridge that we need to have. I think it's when you hear that and just completely saying, okay, bye, and just walking away from the conversation, or immediately attacking the person. I think the first step is we need to understand why, and I think from there we can go, because if they tell you why, then you can have an actual genuine conversation with them about, okay, I think these points are valid, but I think what you said about the wall, I think that's just bullshit. And then you can tell them why you think that, and then you can have an actual discussion about it. But that doesn't happen nowadays. What you hear is, oh, I'm a Trump supporter, and then they say something, and then you just immediately attack them and say everything you think is wrong, Trump is a dumbass. And there's just no middle ground anymore. Like, and the rhetoric is just so violent as well. Like, you can't just have a normal conversation and then it not get into something aggressive. Like, I've done this before, because like one of my sister's friends is like a big Trump supporter, like all the way back to like the primaries, and we had many debates, and I would almost like just be blind angry about some of the things that he would say. But like, and it's natural for that to happen, but you have to get past that and just really think about, like, okay, coming from this guy, you have to understand where he's coming from. But you have to just defend yourself. I don't know. Yeah, it's just a tough subject to really talk about.
Hard for me because, like, if somebody already believes these like really stupid things,
But you can also just make these assumptions about,
like what?
all right, okay, someone can say I'm a Trump supporter, but you might say, okay, they're a racist, or you might say, all right, they're just a rich person who wants to benefit.
I
There might
mean,
be other inherent reasons why, Dom.
but here's the this is an interesting conversation. So if somebody is a Trump supporter, but they're like, I only support Trump because I'm not a fan of NATO or something like that. I don't know why that would be like the one reason you support Trump, but like that's like the one that's like their issue is that they think the United States shouldn't be in NATO, and like Trump will give that to us or something. They're like, I definitely don't agree with him on when he calls Mexicans rapists. I definitely don't agree with him when he calls white supremacists very nice people. So like it's really easy to hear that and be like, oh, okay, so you're not racist. But then on the other hand, it's like, but like when you vote for somebody, you don't vote for NATO. You just voted for somebody who's racist, right?
So are you saying they're no better off?
No, I'm saying
Like,
you're a racist.
No, I'm saying like even though you might not be one, you supporting one is basically the same thing as you being. Is that what you're
It's not
basically
basically
getting?
the same thing. It is.
But almost. You're saying it's just as worse, almost.
I'm not. I'm saying it is because if you're willing to vote for somebody, then you don't care that that's a problem for these people. And I think that that makes you racist.
But I mean, that goes to any election ever, because there's never going to be a candidate that completely you agree with. So there's always, no matter what, you're going to vote for a president that has certain policies that you're not going to agree with, but you outweigh certain of those things because you think his other policies you agree with and you really want those to happen.
I guess you do. I guess that's kind of a good point that you have to like think about it in contrast to like what the other options are. So, for example,
Because
like
a
if I
lot of
vote for
people
Hillary
didn't
Clinton,
vote
that
for him.
doesn't mean
Yeah,
that I
a lot of
support
people,
like
exactly.
banks
A
donating
lot
to
of people
candidates or whatever, right?
voted for Trump. I think it's fair to say a lot of people didn't vote for Trump not because they like Trump, but because they looked at the other side and said, I think this is bullshit too, but they looked at the other side and said, I don't trust Hillary. I think she is I mean, this is just whatever. Like she's going to be an awful president. I don't trust her. She just had like that. She was just like such a politician, like someone that you don't know what you're going to get just by like at face value. I think a lot of people saw that and they're like, I don't trust this. I don't trust her as president. And they voted for Trump.
I mean,
Even
probably,
though,
but like at the same
I
time,
don't know.
voting for Hillary Clinton just because she like takes money from Goldman Sachs to give speeches, that like it. I don't know how to articulate this, but there's a difference between voting for her, not liking that policy, and then like nobody would ever say, well, Dominick doesn't support campaign finance reform because he voted for Hillary Clinton, right? Like, whereas, like, I just feel like it's a bigger, like, part, like, not only because, like, maybe, like, the policies supported and maybe, like, the rhetoric, too, you could even argue is a little, like, standoffish, but, like, Donald Trump, like, ignites these groups of people. He literally, like, gives them legitimacy. Hillary Clinton's not given Goldman Sachs legitimacy, right? Goldman
I
Sachs
agree.
has
I completely
legitimacy,
agree
dog.
with you. I completely agree with you. It's just, it's a bigger issue than us than we can talk about on our stupid podcast that three people are listening to right now. But
I don't know, dude. I feel like I'm probably in the minority on this view. I just think like right leaning, like alt right leaning viewpoints, stuff like that are just so toxic that like it's just another level of like we have to take different views when approaching it.
but
I think that most people don't
I
agree
agree with
me.
your opinion. And I mean, if we continue on this alt right movement and we continue becoming like more polarized, I think we're headed down a very, very slippery slope. Um, I'm not saying Nazi Germany, but this is literally like if you point to the things, the factors that led before Hitler came into power, we're facing some pretty similar stuff.
I mean, yeah, probably.
But I mean, I just think it's toxic for you to say that alt right movements, anyone who's an alt right movement, is just a piece of shit. because they can go out and say the same exact thing about the alt left.
There is no alt left.
Now,
No. Don't say
I
that.
know there is no alt. I know there's no alt left. I'm just saying, like, I put air quotes. You can't see me, but I put air quotes.
Okay.
All right, but they'll say, like, I mean, when Americans were afraid of communists, the same thing happened. Anyone who was like anyone who was somewhat far left just got immediately shat on, and it just became this horrible thing. And like the communists, the Red Scare, and all that, like it was just a bad time. I don't think we want to repeat that. But at the same time, I just don't know how to address these issues about the alt right because things are just getting toxic.
Like,
I mean, our president literally got support from the KKK and acknowledged it. Like we're at that point, Dom.
I mean, I know we're at that point, but like, here's the thing, right? I mean, the Red Scare, I kind of like that analogy, and I probably have to think more about it. But like, here's what I think of when I think of comparing the right to the left and like this sort of like toxic attitude. Today, this toxic attitude from the right takes the form of, I found a stupid SJW on Twitter. I'm going to, or even better, it's not even that they found somebody on Twitter. It's that they found an article from like Vox that has a headline that they don't like. They take a screenshot of the headline, and I don't know if you know who any of these people are, but people like Blair White and Lauren Southern are notorious for this. They will take that headline, they will tweet the headline, and the headline can say something like, sorry, white people, but trying too hard to be not racist is low-key kind of racist. They'll take that headline, they'll tweet something like, huh, well, see, like, SJWs are just so, like, is there anything we can do anymore not to be racist? They'll say something stupid, when in reality, the article, this actually happened. The article actually agrees almost perfectly with what they would think. It talks a lot about, like, you having to be, like, overly sensitive. Do you call somebody black? Do you call somebody African American? Like, these things that, like, these people would actually really, really agree with, right? And they just clip this headline and they don't do anything. That's what I see coming from the right as the, like, answer to the toxic left, is like this super A, academically dishonest, and B, just like low-hanging fruit-esque approach to like anything that goes on. Whereas me, I'm talking about the majority leader. I'm talking about the Speaker of the House and the President of the United States. I'm talking about a majority in both houses of Congress, the White House, and the Supreme Court. Like, it's just different levels.
It is different levels, and I think that's one of the topics that I think I really want to hit upon in our podcast going forward. Is we talk a lot about this in like our personal lives, like when we talk, just in like in general, but pretty much just fighting ignorance.
Yeah,
you know, like I'm not gonna deny that I've been ignorant before because I'm a dumbass and it's happened, but I feel the main thing that I'm trying to get at with this podcast is, all right, we're two people that we like to think at least that we're somewhat educated on these topics, or at least we've read enough material where we're not just spitting out of our assholes at this point.
right.
And I feel like some of these people are doing that. People just read something, they don't even read the whole article, they just read the headline, like you said, and then they have their opinion on it, predisposed most of the time, and then they just go on a rant about it and cause up all this fucking trouble.
It's true.
And
it's like
outrage, and I think that's what needs to change, and I don't know if that's the media's fault, because I mean now like media is just so specialized to the point that you can only you can watch just Fox News all day, and you can go on Breitbart and you can just follow people on Twitter that are just right leaning, and then like if I did that for a couple of years, I would just be a completely changed person. If that's the only media that I consume, that you're gonna turn into those people.
Absolutely. I read a study recently that says that especially young people, they're transformed faster, but everyone, I think the average, if you're listening to a partisan broadcast for, I think it was 5 years, it can completely swap your views from one side to the other. And it's faster in young people.
I can only imagine.
And like, this is really pertinent, I think. And I'm actually doing some work on this at school right now with like things like, people don't realize this, YouTube is extremely conservative. I mean, there's like your mainstream like Jimmy Kimmel, John Oliver, like liberal guys or whatever, but like I wouldn't call them YouTube. Like there's like a really, really, really large growing alt-light, alt-right. Some people, there's part of it called like the skeptic sphere. You probably don't know as much about this, but really large right-leaning YouTube presence. And who's on YouTube? It's kids. And this is one of the reasons that I don't think people realize Generation Z, which is the generation behind millennials, is largely conservative, which people don't realize. There's like a stereotype that young people are liberal. That's not true. Millennials are liberal. Generation Z is conservative.
I wouldn't even say millennials are liberal per se. Like, I feel like some of the characteristics that we have, people automatically label as being liberal views. Certain things like we take equality very seriously, and I don't think equality should be an issue that should be seen as liberal. But that's probably a very millennial thing to say, thinking back on it now. But like some people, like just like I've read a lot about this, about how, like, especially like coming into like restaurants and things, like how we treat waiters very nicely comparative to like other generations and things like that. And it really just comes down to like, we really find, like, we think that there should be equality, like a very, very sense of equality and justice for like everyone. And I feel like those topics personally, that shouldn't have shouldn't be seen as Democratic or Republican, or should be seen as liberal or not. Like, it should just be something everyone believes in. But,
I mean, I agree.
I don't know. I mean, obviously you agree, but is that a millennial thing to say? I don't know.
I don't know either.
But yeah, just going back to the ignorance thing, like I think that's just the biggest thing. Like going back to the media that we consume. Like I was in marketing class last semester, and it's not an effect of it, but this could definitely be a causation of what we're seeing now. Is like, it was like 1960s. 75% of the U.S. population at primetime television in and viewed the three major channels: CBS, NBC, and like Fox or something like that. Like the four major channels. Today, you know what that number is?
I would
75
guess,
before.
I would guess probably around 20%.
A little higher, but it's like 30-40%.
Okay. Still.
And like, that's crazy. And like a pretty short amount of time that happened. And it's not just TV, but it's shown in a bunch of other platforms. Like, as we've expanded, like there's so many more options now. We have Netflix, like you were saying, there's YouTube, like there's all sorts of different social medias that people entertain themselves with. Just so many different options that people can just pick and choose what they want to hear, and they're no longer hearing the opposite side. They literally can just choose to ignore it, which is the root of ignorance. They both start with the same 3 fucking letters, or 4 letters, or 5 letters. I'm like, oh my god, they're the same word at this point. Wait, is that where ignorance comes from? Am I a dumbass? That makes someone. Wait, does ignorance come from ignore? Because I just made a breakthrough, Dominick.
That's it.
I think I just
we
made
just
a
solved
breakthrough.
it. It's over.
We just solved it. But what I'm trying to say at is, ignorance comes. The root of ignorance literally is ignore. Like, people are just ignoring the opposite side, and they don't have Troy, stop looking at me like that. I hate you. I just made a breakthrough.
Oh god.
We did preface this by saying we are dumbasses. So anything that we can say here is fine, I guess.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
yeah,
This is actually, you don't even know how relevant what you just said. So I have a class right before we do this, ends at 4. Okay, it's called Media and Democracy. Literally,
Oh, wow.
we literally this week read like the most like applicable author, or 2 or 3 authors to this like subject that like we like actually could have possibly, and this was not even planned. Oh my god. So there's this one guy, and I'm not gonna be able to explain it in the depth. So there's just one guy whose name is Marshall McLuhan, and we read him this week, and he's super interesting. And basically his there's like 2 basic competing sides here. And what McLuhan would say is the medium is the message. And what that means, that's the title of his piece. And the thesis basically is, as we transition from newspaper to radio to television to internet and social media, that is actually what influences not only how the message goes out, how we interpret the message.
Okay.
There's like so many things to think about, right? So like when we were
That's
reading
crazy.
newspapers, or a really good example is like if you were in a class in like the 60s in college and there's one textbook at the library, what did you have to do? You would go to the library and be like, okay, I want to read my textbook, please. They're like, sorry, Abby has it right now. You got to wait for Abby to finish. Then you can read it, and then John comes in after you, and John's like, okay, I need to read the textbook. They're like, sorry, Dom has the textbook right now. John has to wait for me. Now, I mean, even when we moved to radio, things changed. Now we can all absorb information at the exact same time, right? We moved to TV. TV's an audio-visual platform. We don't even have to read anymore, right? It kind of like distorts who gets to know information. There's no more monopoly of knowledge, only for those who can read. If you can talk, you can understand television. Then we go to the internet. And not only now is it I'm taking in information, I'm putting out information. And what McLuhan would say is the statistic that you brought up earlier, how 75 and now 30% of people are watching TV every night. And the way that television has transformed in the way of like Fox News is totally partisan. I mean, there's obviously other things like the Fairness Doctrine in 1980 or whatever, but like he would say that like the transition of medium is actually what's really important there. Just food for thought. And then there's other people who would probably contend with that and say that, it's not the medium that's good or bad. Like you can use a medium in a good or bad way. Like news, like you have Meet the Press, pretty good news show. They actually try to get to the bottom of stuff. Things like CNN's Crossfire back in like 2000, when was that even? Like 2012? Not trying to do anything except get like shock value. So, I don't know, just food for thought there. Just some food for thought.
I thought that's really cool, like how you kind of took it through kind of the different mediums and how basically it's gone to the point of only some controlling the information and the knowledge, and now it's basically spread to everyone.
Yeah, and you can think about that in a good or a bad way.
Yeah, I mean, people say knowledge is power, so...
But then again, idiots can spread their idiotic ideas that other idiots will eat up, so who knows?
Double-sided sword. A double-sided sword.
For sure. There's no right answer, except the one that I think. So, yeah.
Like an hour now. So
we just, we're at the 57-minute mark. I think that's a good place to cut it for our first go-around.
No, we initially had like 5 topics.
Yeah, we were going to talk about the Girther movement and the H&M racist clothing thing.
Just at the Girther movement for a couple seconds. I honestly just wanted to bring it up just for the sole reason of the name. Just the person who had the audacity to just say, we're going to call it the Girther movement. I applaud that man.
I say ingenuity.
I just say that is genius at another level. The H&M topic, I mean, we hit race a good amount today. There's nothing really more that I would want to say on that topic other than I don't know if you've heard about what happened in South Africa, where they literally went to the point of looting the stores, like 3 separate stores in South Africa of H&M, and protesting outside of the stores and basically destroying them from within. So just talking about how heated that got, just from a simple,
I didn't know that.
Just from a little picture of a kid. So I mean, I just thought that's crazy how just one picture on the internet of a little kid wearing a shirt sparked that sort of controversy. But I think that also just speaks to discontent, and especially in South Africa, where there's a lot of things of like, is the apartheid really over? Like, I mean, you could say it is technically, but I mean, the disparity there between African Americans and white people is still just so large. I mean, in the U.S., you could say the same thing as well.
But Ben, why don't poor people just choose to be rich?
I know, Dom. It's crazy, right?
Ben, it comes back to personal choice. Actually, here's my hot take. Personal choice is what matters. So why don't poor people just choose to be... It's so much better to be rich. Why not just choose it, you know?
No, it's crazy. It's like, if you want to get out of the ghetto, why don't they just do it?
I mean, slavery ended a long time ago, dude.
I love that argument, you know?
So
it's almost like there's not institutionalized racism in place. But that's a story for another
That's a
day.
story for another day.
Well,
Today was good. Today
to
was fun.
anyone-
Tomorrow is another one.
True.
Yeah. Anything you want to
To
say?
anyone
send
out
us
there, yeah, I just want to say to anyone out there that actually stuck through the hour of us talking, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I don't know why you did it. You just wasted an hour. You just wasted an hour.
I know.
Think about that. You could have done
I mean,
homework. You could have applied
my
for a
roommate-
job.
My roommate Troy can barely stand me for like more than a minute at a time. So if someone did it for 59 minutes straight, congratulations.
Good work.
Troy's over here rolling his eyes at me.
Good work, idiots.
But
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll be continuing to give you hot takes.
Hot
like Dom
takes.
likes to say. Hottest
Lukewarm
takes,
at best
hopefully.
takes.
Lukewarm takes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you. And this was Two Guys in a Pod.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.